welcome to this exciting segment of 42 Stories Anthology Presents. We have one of our special guest award winners tonight. Well, today, whenever you're watching. Welcome, Simon.
Thank you. Hi, Bertram.
Hi. This is our cover. It's not going to be the one for the book. This is one of the drafts. What's your first impression of it? The writers, as you know, picked it.
I mean, as a Douglas Adams fan, I'm immediately drawn to it. As indeed the whole anthology idea, really, with all the 42s. It's great. Yeah, I love it.
Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah, it's great to hear the people's impressions of it. And here's also the logo where I'm using it to present these interviews too. So
That's
that's
cool.
also going to be on the cover. And we're
Yeah,
putting
no, I used to be able to pretty much quote the entire text of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So
oh, that's great. So you might even recognize the ring as that's more of a rare thing with the ring. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The first logo that the same artist put out was they had a whale, and I go, oh, that's kind of close. People are going to think there's copyright issues, but with this, I think it's
Oh,
okay.
right. I see. You were worried about. Yeah, I see what you mean. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I'll send you a copy of that if you're interested, since you know all the you'll know what the whale's about since you know.
yeah. I know what I remember the whale episode.
All right. So yeah, as I mentioned, you were an honorable mention award winner. As I mentioned, you were an honorable award winner. So, a better sentence there. In the Mythopia category. Yeah. And we'll hear that story in a minute from you. I'd like to go ahead and tell viewers your biography, if that's okay. And pardon
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
mispronunciation.
That would be great.
All
Yeah,
right.
and I thanks for the award. That's fantastic. It was a lovely surprise.
Oh yeah, the judges actually thought of that. I don't. It was sort of like a domino effect. What the first judge picked honorable mention suddenly. We only had two awards: the Story of Excellence and then a surprise runner-up award. And then
Okay.
the first judge said, "I'm giving an honorable mention award." And then I said, "Okay, well then all judges can give honorable mention awards." And I also didn't even say a limit. So like one judge in the Western category picked, I think, 11 winners for the honorable mention award. It got pretty high up there, but I think in your case there weren't that many. So,
Okay.
but
Good.
that was a complete judge thing. They just decided let's do honorable mention too.
Okay. That's cool. That's very
Uh,
cool.
so and Kewin, correct?
Kewin. Yeah. That's not a picture of me though. Just to be clear.
Yeah. I don't know who that is. He looks like a writer.
Yeah. I just have more hair than that. But yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. And more hair than
I
me
tend,
too.
I tend not to dress formally when I write. So
Yeah, that's sort of old dayish. They were very serious about their writing because they were paid what was it, $1 a word? So they had
wow.
to look very fancy. Uh,
Right.
Simon Kewin is a fantasy and science fiction writer, author of the Clovenland fantasy trilogy, cyberpunk thriller, The Gene Hunter, steampunk Gormenghast, saga engine, the Triple Stars science fiction trilogy, and the Office of the Witchfinder General Books, published by Elsewhere Press. Oh, very impressive.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. There's 3 of those published over here in the UK, and they've just accepted my 4th book in that series. So that's good news.
yeah, that's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So for those curious, here's the title of the story of yours in the anthology. Would you like to give it a read?
Yeah, I can do. Yep, here we go. As you can see, it's called He Walks Alone and All the Trees Love Him. Mac glimpsed the antlers through the branches, dappled in sunlight. He raised his rifle, aiming low for the creature's head. The crack of the shot echoed off the trees. He saw his mistake when the antler-headed man stepped, scowling, into the light.
Yeah, it's one thing to just read a story, but I think hearing it from the author, you can feel the tone in the narrative. And the reader from hearing your story is going to know at this point that the antler-headed man is sort of something important to you. I think that's as we've talked about before, that's a kind of a reoccurring character of yours, right?
It is, yeah. I mean, he's obviously a figure in myth in Britain, and I dare say other parts of the world as well.
Yeah.
But and he's sort of a spirit of the woodland or of nature or whatever, I suppose. And yeah, he does recur. I've used the Witchfinder Office of the Witchfinder General books that we were just talking about. There's an antler-headed man in those, as it happens. One of the sort of heroes of it appears as an antler-headed man for a time. Yeah, so that it is a recurring idea. Yeah.
And it's intriguing. So I'm glad that you're continuing with that beyond just 42 words. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Shakespeare had antler-headed men, and
Hmm.
it's an old trope in British literature, but it's nice to carry on with it, but also do something new with it, I think. So.
Yeah. And Nara is a town, well, a prefecture in Japan. They also have an antler-headed man as their mascot.
Oh, cool.
But I
Right,
think it's more because deer are there's a lot of deer there.
right. Okay.
So
Yeah, in Britain, he's sort of a warden of the forest, I suppose, and a sort of vengeful / protective spirit of the forest. So, yeah.
interesting. So yeah, I guess they got from that that you're in the UK. Where in the UK are you?
So I live in quite near Wales, but in England. So kind of actually quite near a forest called the Forest of Dean, which is a large and very lovely wooded area in the west of England. So far, I haven't seen the horned man in the forest, but I'll keep looking.
Yeah, keep at it. Probably shows up when it's winter or something.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he just appears when you do something wrong. So I'm always very careful to respect the forest.
That's why. Hmm. How about your writing space? Where's that?
Yeah, I don't really have a writing space. I mean, I would love to. It always looks very appealing, that picture you've got there of a little special space, but I don't really have one. I've got very used over the years to writing as and where I am, basically. So I can write, in the car, on the train, on a plane, sitting in the airport. I don't really have a particular space. I have a desk in the house, and that's where my computer is. So I suppose I write there more than ever
Hmm.
anywhere else. But very often I just take my laptop and go wherever and just write when it occurs to me.
It's a great way to get creativity out. Just kind of
Yeah, it is. It's pragmatic as much as anything. I did I've done a couple of degrees recently in English, and I was working full time at the time, and I just got very used to grabbing any spare minutes I could to work on whatever I had to work on. And I just became the way I write. I find if I have the whole day ahead of me, I can't really write anymore. But if I have like a half-hour deadline, or I set myself a deadline and I say, right, I've got to go somewhere in half an hour, that focuses my mind, and I can then write. So it's strange, but it's the way I am.
Yeah, 24 hours really is not a lot of time.
No,
So it's
yeah.
uh it's good to plan that out. Hmm.
Yeah. I do find it useful to say, okay, you've got this hour now, you've got to go and write.
Hmm.
Even though I could spend the rest of the day writing, somehow having the whole day I just then prevaricate for the whole day. So I do have to set myself targets, which is weird because I love writing. I don't know why that is, but
Okay. Well, since you're writing everywhere you go, how do you relax?
we do a lot of walking in the woods and on the hills and so on. I do a lot of running. I'm doing more and more running these days, which I which I have grown to love more and more. And then it's just the normal stuff, I guess, reading and watching TV and films and going to the theatre and that sort of stuff. Just normal things.
Yeah, walking can be a great way to relax. I think that Beethoven would do that as well.
Yeah. I find it when I'm walking, just the simple act of moving forwards helps the writing process as well. So that I don't know whether you consider that relaxing, but it's a really good time to think about stories and writing and what you're working on. Just by moving forwards, somehow my thoughts move forward as well. So
Yeah,
I do like.
definitely. I think it's relaxing. It can be. It
Yeah.
it gets harder when you're running. I don't know if somebody running would say that's relaxing. That would be difficult to argue, but walking
Yeah,
definitely relaxing.
yeah, that's fair. I don't really think about writing when I'm running. Um, I don't really think about anything, which is maybe why I like it. I'm just in a zone, and I'm just moving through the world, and I don't really know much else about anything. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is nice.
Not everybody can relax somewhere like this, where it's a bunch of chairs and a beach. Yeah, it's not for
Yeah,
everybody.
I really, I mean, we've tried holidays where we've done that sort of thing, and then after about half an hour, we're just right. What are we going to do? I just can't. I can't sit there all day and do nothing. So, which I regret. Really, it must be nice, but there we go.
Well, not everybody has the same cup of tea,
No.
Speaking of that, what kind of drinks do you like? Are you like a coffee drinker, a tea drinker, or kind of a Hemingway alcoholic?
Um, I would say I'm not a Hemingway alcoholic. I drink very little alcohol. Um, although I don't avoid it. I do like it. Um, tea or coffee? I come from a family of devoted tea drinkers. Never liked the stuff. Don't understand why people like it. I drink lots of strong black coffee, basically. Um, yeah, that's my drink of choice.
Yeah. I like coffee, like black coffee too, but my fiance is trying to get me off it, so I'm trying to compromise with something like matcha, which is also bitter like coffee.
Right. Yeah.
For anybody who's kind of they want to get off coffee, matcha might be a good um,
Okay.
a good way to get off coffee. But I really like coffee. It's nice.
I used to drink too much coffee, if I'm honest. And I used to get massive migraines coming off the coffee at the weekend and
Yeah.
all of that. But weirdly, since I started running, I don't know if this is why, but I have not had a single migraine and I can drink as much coffee as I want. So it's a win win, really.
That could be a glucose thing. I'm not a professional at it, but yeah, if you get headaches from caffeine, like low glucose might be a reason. I don't know.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
I sort of assumed it was something to do with blood flow, but you might be right. I'm not. I'm
Could
not.
also be blood flow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also not a pro at that either. Yeah.
Yeah.
Education's my thing and writing.
Okay. Right. Cool. Cool.
Um, but how about we talk about songs and bands? What gets you pumped into writing?
Yeah, it's a good one because I try to think of songs or the bands that get me into the mood, and I'm one of those people who loves lots of different sorts of music, and I'm always discovering new bands and songs and artists. Um, so I guess I occasionally go back and listen to old favorites, and some of that is indie rock, and some of that is rap, and some of that is thrash metal. Strangely, and a lot of those old favorites can I guess get me pumped for writing, but I don't I don't listen to them when I'm writing. I find them very distracting. So I tend not to listen to music when I'm writing, I would say.
So, well, while writing, that would have been the next question, but
Yeah.
does anything inspire you when writing to write? Anything specific, I mean?
I don't no, I don't think so. I mean no, I mean I find weird random things inspire me. just often a strange turn of phrase that I hear on the radio or the TV or in a film inspires me and just triggers something. Like I was driving to work a few years ago, and the news on the radio just mentioned the phrase museum beetles. And I don't know what it was about. I can't remember the news story, but that just triggered a whole story in my head of what museum beetles might be. And so it's just odd little random things, I think. So things I see in films and things I read or things people say to me, and then very often what I do is two things which are in my head. I just think to myself, oh, it would be interesting to put that and that together, see what happens. And that's often where a story comes from, just that kind of merging of two disconnected ideas. But there's no particular movies or shows I would say. I mean, because I rarely watch a movie or a show more than once, so it's just whatever I'm into at the time. And I sort of I try to foster a mindset of being very open to the world when I'm writing, because I find, and I'm conscious this is magical thinking, and I don't really believe this, but it seems like if I'm stuck in a story, the world will give me the answer to what I need to do in that story. Somebody will say something that is going to unblock the plot or give me what I need to do next. And I don't really believe that's true, but that's how it feels at times. It feels like if you just walk around being open to influences and suggestions, that something will hit you that, gives you the direction you need to go to. So that's...
So when you say open to the world, are you saying not having a bias when you go into a situation in your story? And
I try to. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess we all fail at doing that because we're all biased. But especially if I've got a story to a point and I'm not sure what's going to happen next, or I'm not sure where it needs to go next, I find that very often the universe, the world around me, gives me the answer. Just by somebody will say something, and I'll be like, maybe that could be the thing that happens next. And it's obviously, like I say, it's just my brain seeing patterns where there are none, but that can be really useful. So it's good to, be open-minded, I think. Open-eyed, open-minded.
Well, if the patterns lead to 42, it definitely is true that they exist.
Yeah. But yes, it's true. Yes. How many roads must a man walk down?
It's 42, right?
Yeah.
Well, probably. What inspires you to write, or who?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm one of those people who always wanted to write. Since I could remember, always thought I would. And I just got into the habit of it, and I've just carried on. Really, I something I enjoy doing. I get this thrill of when a story idea comes to me. I get this little thrill of, ooh, I could create this world or this situation or this character, and I just want to get it down, really. So that's the inspiration, I suppose.
So it sounds like you mentally challenge yourself and then go with the momentum. Is that right?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, it is a challenge. Obviously, there's a lot of slog involved in writing. Yeah, because it's easy to have ideas, and it's easy to, when you're inspired, it's easy to write. But to finish a story, there's a lot of, it's work, basically. You need to complete the idea or complete the plot. So I do challenge myself in that way. And I think also I try to hang on to the sort of the kid, the child inside me, the sort of boyish sense of wonder at the world. It's very easy to get jaded, I think, as you get old and sort of depressed about the world. And the world seems to do its best to make us depressed at times. So it's kind of nice to try and retain that sense of optimism and delight and wonder and hope that I used to have and still do have as a boy.
Well, that's great that that can appear in your writing, and that's a good inspirational thing right there. So I'm glad that happens. But that said, how do you handle rejection? Stories.
I have had stories rejected. Yes, I mean, I've sort of got used to it, if I'm honest. I used to get very upset by them, because I used to make the mistake of pinning all my hopes on one story being sent out to one magazine or one market, and then when that got rejected, it felt like a rejection of me, and that therefore I wasn't a writer. I've learned various coping mechanisms over the years, and I basically have seen so many rejections. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of rejections, all of which I've kept. That nowadays I just think, yeah, one more, their loss, and move on. They don't really bother me too much.
Yeah. I used to have like that too, like a file of real rejections because I started writing before computers.
Yeah,
I had them in paper, but had to throw them out when I was getting rid of paper.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, they're all emailed these days, but no, I still have all my paper rejections. I still keep them. Just one day I plan to have an exhibition of them. Just paper the walls with all my rejection slips and call it art. But
it could be next to the Beetle Museum.
Well, yeah, that would be good. But yeah, but one thing I learned very early on was to have lots of stories, or several stories out there for consideration, so that you don't pin all your hopes on one magazine or one publisher. Basically, that's something that you think to yourself, well, okay, I've still got this story out there and that story out there, so that makes it easier.
Well, that's the kind of mentality that leads to acceptance, is when people don't let one rejection stop them and they keep going. So maybe they want to get published at one place, so they write something else for that one place, but they keep sending that story somewhere else. It's like never let it collect dust. And I think just continuing to try is what leads to acceptance for a lot of people. How do you celebrate when you get accepted?
It's a good question. I not very well, really, and I think that's a really important thing to do, is to celebrate acceptance, because there's so much more rejection than acceptance, at least for me. I assume that's standard. It's really important to celebrate acceptance, but I think I just sort of smile for a day, basically, and then that's it. I don't really do anything else. But I would certainly encourage people to celebrate in any way they feel fit, really. I maybe just tell my family and they just go, oh, well done. And then that's that, really.
Yeah, I guess you don't want people thinking that you have too much of an ego. So it's good to be humble about it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when your stories are accepted, I want to know, because I think you're a good writer. So at least post on social media so I know, and others.
Yeah, I do try and do that. I mean, I try and put it on social media and in my blog and the newsletter and so on and so forth.
Good.
But yeah, and there aren't that many acceptances, but there are some of them, and some of them are still. It's still lovely to get an acceptance wherever it's from. Just I'd say it gives me a day of feeling really good when I get an acceptance. So that's lovely.
So I mentioned social media. Where can people find you? The ones who want to know about these acceptances.
I do write about other stuff as well, I promise. I'm on X, as we seem to call it these days. Although I sometimes think I shouldn't be on X, but I am on X at Simon Kewin. I have my website. I use Facebook a little bit, not terribly much. And I don't use any of those other. I think I've signed up for all of those networks, and then I basically just use Twitter and my blog and a bit of Facebook. So my website is probably the best place to go.
What's the website?
It's a good question. Simon Kewin, my name, .co.uk.
Okay. .co.co.
Yeah, .co.uk.
All right. For any Americans who don't understand your slang, but yeah, I'm sure they. I mean, because Americans would say .co, and you say .co in the UK, and
Oh, okay.
so I was throwing that
Right.
out there for any Americans listening.
What would you say? .co.
Yeah. It's a
Okay.
big thing.
Oh,
Hmm.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. .co.uk.
Yeah. And we know that because of my friends from the UK. I go, oh, okay, what's y'all say?
Fair enough.
But here's thank you in a bunch of languages. I sincerely thank you because this wasn't the first,
Okay.
but the second take. And yeah, thanks for being a trooper.
No worries. Always happy to talk to people. Thank you for the putting it all together and for putting all your efforts into it and for the award. That's great.